The training yard of Station Valor smelled like rust and cold polymer, a smell that the aliens had long since stopped noticing, but one that Maya found oddly comforting. It reminded her of the gym back home. Of sweat and iron and the particular kind of silence that exists only when people are about to push their bodies past what they believe possible. She stood at the edge of the sparring ring, arms crossed, watching her friend Joe warm up. Joe was short for a human, 5'4", lean but wiry, with the kind of fast twitch muscle that didn't look impressive until it was moving. He'd grown up in the Philippines, spent 3 years doing boxing and eskrima before the Valor Collective had come recruiting from Earth's volunteer exchange program. Which was a polite way of saying, "We want to see what you're made of, Deathworlders." Joe cracked his knuckles. Across from him stood Hai, a Valari fighter, 7 feet of gray-blue chitin and dense muscle, with a fighting weight roughly 3 times Joe's. Hai was smiling. Or doing what passed for smiling among a species whose faces didn't fully move, a slight widening of the olfactory slits, a relaxing of the shoulder spines. It was the smile of something that didn't expect a challenge. Maya had seen that smile before. She didn't like it. "Standard sparring rules," announced Kale, the training commander, a towering Valari with deep indigo markings across his chest plates, his rank insignia etched into his collar in 3 languages. He paced the ring's perimeter with the easy authority of someone who had never, in his decades of command, been seriously threatened. Contact to the torso. No strikes to joints. Yield is acknowledged by ground touch with both hands. Joe nodded. Hai said nothing. The signal clicked. What happened next was, by any reasonable measure, a mismatch. Hai moved the way large creatures move when they've never needed to be careful, powerful, fast in the Valari sense, but linear. He expected Joe to meet him, or to retreat. He did not expect Joe to step into the line of attack at a 45-degree angle, deflecting the strike with his forearm while driving an elbow into Hai's lateral nerve cluster, a spot that the Valari fighters had never thought to protect, because no Valari opponent would have known it was vulnerable. Hai stumbled. The crowd of alien trainees around the ring went very quiet. Joe grinned. Then New York shouted something from the sideline, a fast, clipped word in Old Valari dialect that the translation ship in Maya's ear didn't fully catch. But she saw Hai's posture change. Saw the way his spines flattened. Saw him pull something from his belt, a practice baton, officially sanctioned, but weighted for Valari muscle. Meant for Valari bone. Not for a human spine. Me and Day, standing beside New York, said nothing. The youngest trainee, looked away. Hai swung, not a sparring strike. A real one. Joe got his arm up in time to take it on the forearm instead of the skull. There was a sound like a branch snapping in cold weather. Joe went down hard, cradling his arm, and did not get back up. Maya was already moving before Hai raised the baton a second time. She didn't run. Maya had learned long ago that humans who run at things look desperate. She walked fast, purposeful, the way her grandfather had walked into arguments he'd already decided to win. She stepped into the ring, placed herself between Joe and Hai, and looked up at the 7-foot alien with the expression her mother called the face. That, she said quietly, was not a sparring strike. Hai's olfactory slits widened. He outweighed her by 400 pounds. She was unarmed. He said, in Valari-accented common, "Step aside, small one." The match continues. The match ended when you pulled a weapon outside the rules. She didn't raise her voice. Put it down. Kale was approaching from the far side of the ring, his expression unreadable. Trainee Maya. Step back. This does not concern. It concerns me. She said it without looking away from Hai. He's my partner. And your fighter broke the rules of engagement. In writing, Section 4, Subsection 9 of the Valor Training Accord, unauthorized escalation during sanctioned sparring constitutes grounds for immediate disciplinary review. I memorized it on day 1. A pause. Somewhere in the crowd, me made a low sound, not quite a word. Not quite nothing. Kale stopped walking. You memorized the accord, he said. It was not quite a question. All of it. Also the arbitration protocols. She finally looked at him. Would you like me to quote the section on commander liability for trainee misconduct during supervised sessions? Kale was very still. This was the thing about humans that the Valari had not fully processed yet, the thing that the recruitment brochures mentioned but didn't explain. Humans came from a planet that had been trying to kill them for 4 billion years. Volcanoes. Ice ages. Superbugs. Apex predators. The deep ocean. The deep everything. The species that survived all of that had not done so by being the biggest. They had done so by being relentless, adaptable, and, perhaps most terrifyingly, patient enough to learn the rules of every game before flipping the table. Hai swung the baton again. Maya caught it. Not blocked, caught. Both hands. The impact should have broken her wrists. It didn't, because she'd redirected the force the way Joe had taught her, the way his Eskrima instructor had taught him, rotating her whole body into the motion so that the kinetic energy had somewhere to go besides her bones. She twisted. The baton came free. Hai stumbled forward. She stepped to the side, got one arm around his elbow joint, the weak point, the angle where the chitin plating didn't quite meet, applied leverage, and pulled. The sound was not pleasant. Hai dropped to his knees. His arm was still attached. Maya had not lost her mind entirely, but the joint was separated, the muscles torqued at an angle that lit up every pain receptor the Valari nervous system possessed. The baton clattered to the floor. Maya released him and stepped back. In her right hand, because she had not let go of it during any of this, was the baton. She turned and held it out to Kale, handle first. Joe needs a medic, she said. His forearm is fractured. Possibly the radius. You'll want to check for nerve involvement before immobilization. Kale stared at her for a long moment. Then at Hai, who was making a low, continuous sound on the floor. Then at the baton in Maya's hand. You, he said slowly, just disabled one of my senior fighters. He attacked my partner outside the rules. I applied necessary force to prevent further injury. She paused. I was proportionate. He still has his arm. From the sideline, Day said something fast and quiet to Wei in their own dialect. Maya's chip caught about half of it, didn't move like a prey animal, and knew exactly where. Me was looking at her differently now. Not with contempt. Not even with wariness. With something that, on a human face, would have been called respect. Kale was quiet for a very long time. Then he said, see to your partner. Later, in the medical bay, Joe sat with his arm in a Valari cast, a rigid foam sleeve that hardened around the fracture, and ate from a ration pack with his good hand. He was maddeningly calm about the whole thing. You pulled his arm off, he said. I didn't pull it off. I dislocated the shoulder joint. Semantics. There's a significant difference between. Maya. He looked at her. You walked into a ring with a 7-foot alien who just broke my arm, and you took his weapon away from him. She shrugged. He was going to swing again. Yeah. Joe was quiet for a second. Then he smiled, the real one, the one that reached his eyes. You know what the scary part is? You weren't even that scared. Maya thought about it. Truly thought about it. I was a little scared, she admitted. But he didn't know the rules well enough to use them against me. And I did. She looked down at her hands. The impact from the catch still hummed faintly in her palms. That's the only edge we need. Outside the bay, she could hear the yard resuming. Training continuing. The ordinary sounds of beings pushing themselves towards something harder than they were yesterday. And somewhere out there, she knew, Kale was reading Section 4, Subsection 9 of the Accord for the first time. Learning the rules. Like everyone else, eventually did, after meeting a human who already knew them. The galaxy had many predators. But it had only one species that treated the rulebook as a weapon.